Welcome back to the Play the Fight Song podcast. We are ready for week 12. There's only 2 weeks left of the regular season, excluding the Army-Navy game, which holds its own week. We're down to the wire, getting to a point where we're going to have to check in and make sure that somebody parks in the conference title point game, getting closer to rivalry week. How about one last hurrah for the Pac-12 this week and a ton of good games? How's everybody feeling? Are we pumped up, Parks? Let's go to you first. What are you thinking on this week?
I can't tell whether to be like excited that we're getting towards the end and there's like a bunch of races still wide open, or to be sad that this is the last year of like college football as we know it, as we've grown on it. Like I can't tell whether to be happy or sad right now. It's so late in the year and it feels like it's flown by, but excited for big games coming up, but I'm also enjoying them as a sad fan and the 12-year-old inside of me is dying a little bit, but excited overall.
You could say that this is like part 3 or version 3 of college football we've seen, because we saw, like the original Big 12, the original Pac-12, and then we saw the shifts from Nebraska and Colorado and schools like that, and then we're seeing another shift, and this is like the most dramatic of them all. So I am on board with you. I don't know how we're going to preview one conference in less than 4.5 hours next year, but we'll have to figure that one out. Jake, let's go up to you. You got a big weekend this week. You're not going to this game this week, are you?
No, I do not think so. I contemplated it, but I just want to relax.
Is that a stress thing, or is that you just can't go?
It was went back and forth on it kind of deal, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna go. It's just not.
Provo took it out of him, man.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing.
The trip
Provo's
didn't
enough,
take it out of it.
Hey, shout out to all the BYU guys that gave you the plug for a tailgate. How did that all happen? Did you like go on Reddit and be like, "Hey, who's got a tailgate?" Or
yeah,
how did you meet
pretty
these
much?
People?
My
friend actually you used Reddit for it?
My friend Ben did. He's a big like Reddit guy for all of his information. So found one that said that this lot wasn't on BYU's campus and drinking is allowed and encouraged. So made our way over there. We just, all these Iowa State fans pop out of a van and we're like, hey, we drink here? And they're like, yeah, like we're season ticket holders. We all just, well, whatever. This is, welcome. And just chatted up with one guy to another. And then my guy Cody, he just is like, hey, let's go over to the Booze and Coog. It was the big drinking tent there in the lot. So went over there and met some.
Is a great t-shirt. Show the t-shirts.
Yeah. They met some good people, and I think they're definitely an ally of the new Big 12 going forward, I would definitely say.
Brees, how are you feeling, man? I know you're not going to Ames for this weekend. You don't have a big game this weekend. You kind of have fallen off a cliff with Syracuse. Like, how are we feeling?
I mean, I'm so excited to watch football. I mean, you're talking about how we're seeing the end of this age of football, but it's still exciting. I mean, we're going to get into it in a little bit about like the football race, but I still think it's exciting what we have going ahead of us. Trying to figure out, I mean, the conference thing, I am bummed about like the Pac-12 not being a thing anymore, but I think with like the 12-team playoff, I think it's going to be super interesting next year going into it too. So, and this weekend I'm going to go watch some. I don't know what the league is, but it's some indoor hockey that's here in upstate New York. Watertown Wolves, they're awful, but I'm going to go watch some guys play some hockey and hopefully fucking shoot some pucks out of net and throw some fists.
It's got to be like $1 beers, no? Going to a promo night?
No, it's more expensive.
New York, man. Yeah, it's New York, man. It's like $10, I bet.
Tickets to get in are cheap because they're so bad, but yeah, no, they don't bring the drink prices down.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough.
It's unfortunate.
Hey, let's jump into the recent news in college football. We're getting to the part of the year where rumors are swirling. What, Parks got something to say? What?
Yeah, just a quick question for Jake. How is it traveling for your team and winning? I've never done that before. I would like to do that. That sounds kind of fun.
Not only
they
winning,
they fist pounded them.
Yeah, I was say they kind of whoop some ass. I will say, like, another little thing. I don't want to complain about it, but it like low key like kind of hurt to ruin the crowd of BYU. Like they had an awesome atmosphere and they honestly stayed for the majority of the game.
Up.
But it was a great like I wanted to see it fired up going into the fourth quarter.
What are we talking about? No, you don't
see
feel bad that you kick the shit out
If you want to do that, you wouldn't ditch the college football trip every year.
Yeah, what is going on?
My God, here he goes.
Exonerate that. Nope, that was the worst.
Parts,
thing
by the way,
entire time.
By the way, since our little tangent.
Here we go.
He gets all fired up. Nebraska's on a 2-game losing streak and staring at a
Everybody
4-game
knows,
losing
Jake.
streak.
Everybody knows.
just wanted to remind you.
We're not
You
staring
did
at
bet on him,
nothing.
Chafe. So maybe it's your fault.
Yeah.
Was it my fault?
That's a lot
You
of
bet
lip
on
for
him.
it. You believed in him last week. That's a lot of lip.
It's your fault. Yeah.
I did. They
This
let me
is
down.
your
This
fault.
is your fault.
Yeah.
Somebody in their car is like, I know that movie. I know that movie.
Who should I
But-
request on
good night.
Venmo for that, by the way? Because I went back and watched I didn't get a chance to watch the game, and then I went back and watched the highlights, and oh my God, is it like Jeff Sims or is it
Buddy,
Purdy or is
any
it Matt
quarterback
Rule?
on that roster.
couldn't-
Any
Who is-
quarterback on
I
that
couldn't-
roster.
Somebody owes me some money, damn it! Because we
I
can't.
couldn't
How do we not
believe
score any
watching the
points
recap.
in the red zone?
Any quarterback on that roster, you can shoot him a Venmo request.
They got
Our
all the
offensive line is
NIL
pretty
money. I
good.
will send them a Venmo request.
Yeah, hit some of Jeff Sims Amigos money. The Jeff Sims combo at Amigos Mexican food. You can hit that
Is
up.
it good?
Great combo, but
Oh,
I'm a little mad I supported it. But he's our starting quarterback this week, so big week for Jeff.
How about the over-under opening at 24.5 Iowa, Nebraska next week in Lincoln?
Did it really?
Yeah,
I
dude,
don't know.
That,
But
that's
it's
too
not that
many.
far off.
Oh.
What happened if it
that's too
many.
snows like 3 inches? It can't be
Guess what
over
I'm
28.
still taking.
They said, yeah, they said on like I think it might have been Fernelli on Cover 3 that like it legitimately can't go under. Like no under can go over under 27 or 26. Like the line can't be set at like anything less than that.
Hold my beer. We're about to set records.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't even know, dude. It's gonna be so
That's
bad.
what
And
I'm-
also,
that's
Just
what I'm
saying, what are the
still
weather
inches.
that bad?
3 inches? That's way too much. That would be even worse for the.
That's a
sport.
lot
Is it
for that's a lot for some people.
That's a lot.
That's a
Is it
lot.
actually
Dude.
supposed to snow?
I don't know. I'm
know,
just
but
saying
if
if the
it snows
weather's
that much-
bad, yeah, you have no idea. It could be anything.
I'm gonna-
16.
It's gonna make me throw up my Thanksgiving dinner. It's gonna make me sick.
Dude,
You're
it
eating
could be at
Thanksgiving
17.
dinner on Friday?
I think like 17 could be a good spot. Like I feel like the
you
max
could-
for that game is 10.
You could live that under last week at like 14 or 13, couldn't you?
Whose
Actually,
game are you talking about now?
Yeah. The Iowa Rutgers game.
Oh, probably it was
In
3
like
nothing.
in like the second or third quarter, you could have live at the under at like 13 or something like that. I saw.
you'd have lost.
Yeah,
It's a
you
lot
would have,
different
but
than
I'm
the
still
Iowa
saying the
basketball
fact
game.
it was
I'm pretty
that
sure
low
the
at one
live total
point that was
300.
ridiculous.
Hey man,
All right, sorry.
would have got it by ourselves. But let's go into recent news in some college football. It's the time of year where people are starting to lose their jobs and people are moving jobs or rumored to be leaving jobs. Let's start off with Mississippi State. Zach Arnett is fired at Mississippi State after about 9-10 months as the head coach. Obviously put into a really difficult situation at that school. But they are rumored in some different spots. There was that Photoshop. I found out it was Photoshopped. I fell for it. Hand up. I did. The Jamie Chadwell piece that he was tweeting about Liberty football from Starkville, Mississippi. But we'll see where Mississippi State goes and what direction they go. Andy Avalos, also of Boise State, was fired. Obviously, the big one, Jimbo Fisher at A&M. That buyout money is pretty. When I grow up, I want to be a college football fired head coach.
That'd be sick.
That'd be
huh?
pretty darn cool.
76.
Start
million?
writing that on your third grade papers. What do you want to be to grow up? Fired. Just college football fired. It'd be
There was
awesome.
somebody out there that said that, like just somebody who's on the up and coming, get a big job and just shit the program down. Like see how fast you can get fired out of that big contract. It's not a bad
No,
way to
you
go about
need
it.
you need a
It is if
contract.
you- so unethical.
You need a contract extension. You need to
Yeah, you need
last
one.
your one contract. You get the new extension, and then you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, $38 million.
Actually, I mean, let's say you had a
I-
couple good years at Georgia Southern and you get a pretty darn good contract somewhere. I mean, if your buyout's $25 million, it's 25 more than you had.
I don't know if you guys saw the thing, but somebody broke down the stats of how much money he's gonna make per day or something like that. And they broke down per hour. Like when he goes to sleep, he makes more than I make in 3 months. Like it's $6,500 when he goes to sleep.
Well, he
Like,
is
it's
coaching
ridiculous.
he did
I know, but still,
crumble a football program. You're just working. So
I know,
he
but
did
yeah,
a lot.
it's still though.
Into the non-head coach piece, Mike Yurkich at Penn State, the offensive coordinator, was let go by James Franklin and staff. I think they were just frustrated with and really thought they had the team and the defense to win these games, or at least one of these Big East or Big Ten East games. Didn't get Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State or Michigan on the year. They go to 10-2, probably is where they'll finish. No chance at a Big Ten title, no chance at a playoff. So I think James Franklin's looking for anything to get people off his back, probably, if we're being honest. Just it's been, can Franklin win the big one? It's just been no, 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 no every year. I thought this was a year they could win one. They do not. They'll go a different direction with the offense coordinator. Brady Hoke at San Diego State will step down at the end of the season. I believe he's retiring on that. But just another one to point out, it is getting to that season where coaches are looking at their job and wondering, am I going to be here next year? And people are on the phone with recruits telling them, hey, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. And then they're fired within 24 hours of that call. But interesting time of year. Obviously, we'll update you every week on those. Does anybody have any big thoughts on any of those firings or head coaching openings, maybe that I didn't mention here?
Yeah, the San Diego State one makes me a little nervous. Nebraska's defensive coordinator, Tony White, from Syracuse, Reese, he spent 9 years there as an assistant, and that's where he's originally from. So it worries me a little bit. But Nebraska should have enough money to pay Tony and hopefully keep him around. But I mean, I think bigger programs are going to be looking at him, but just the ties to that one makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, it's also just like you never know what a pull is for a certain guy. Like everybody's got their different wants and needs and aspirations as a coach. So that'll be interesting to pay attention to. Let's jump into an embrace debate topic. This one has been swirling probably since the last Sunday, all about the potential college football playoff scenarios and what the committee will have to make a decision out of. So here's what the scenario is basically. There are 2 spots taken. Okay, we'll say one spot taken by an undefeated Big Ten champion, Ohio State or Michigan, and the other one taken by a 13-0 Florida State. Between the rest of these teams, who gets the last 2 spots? A 12-1 Oregon, who's a conference champ, a 12-0 Texas, who's a conference champ, or 12-1 Texas is a conference champ, 12-1 Bama, who's a conference champ, a 12-1 Georgia non-champion, or a Washington 12-1 non-champion. Everybody has their own ideas. They wrote them down. We'll discuss. Reese, you're going to go first. What 2 teams get into the playoff in this scenario?
I'm going to take.
Why are you wrong?
I'm going to take Georgia, and I'm going to take Oregon.
Wrong again.
I'm taking Oregon State with the 1 seed, Florida State with the 2, Georgia with 3, and Oregon with 4. I was like mapping it out, and my argument for Oregon getting in is the opposite of why Georgia would get in, because I'm like, Oregon is going to go win a neutral site game, conference title, whatever. Yeah. So that knocks out Washington. But I'm like, wait, Georgia would then go lose, but that would be their 1 loss, I guess. But I don't know how the committee is going to keep out a team that just won back-to-back titles, and if their only loss is in that conference championship, I just don't know how you make that fight to keep them out. And yeah, Bama wins, but I think you still got to look back at that. Was it week 4 loss to Alabama, or the week 4 loss to Texas at home by double digits? Like, I still think that holds some weight to it.
That is radical thinking. I don't know how they would. You can't tell me that Oregon beats Washington and then.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I was making that argument, and I was like, wait, I'm arguing why Washington would be out. Like it's the same thing that Georgia would get out. But I don't know. The back-to-back champions. I just don't know how you keep them.
Yeah,
out.
I hear that argument.
Also, bold.
That's what I got.
Bold strategy to assume that Florida State's gonna walk into Gainesville next week at night and get out 13-0. But
great point, Jake.
But for all honesty, I know what I want, but I know what I'm gonna get, and this is what I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get Alabama and Georgia both in the.
No, you're not. Come on.
Yeah,
we cannot. We don't fall for
Alabama.
Alabama,
Alabama will take the number 1 spot because they beat presumably the number 1 team.
They're going to take the number 1 spot.
They're going to
jump Michigan. They're going to jump Florida State.
I don't know.
I would say they'll probably 2 at the most. 2 at the most. They're getting the 1 spot. They're definitely jumping Florida State, but I think they're getting the number 1 spot, especially. Okay, so say they keep it within 7.
Here's your argument.
They would reorganize that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
also,
they would make sure that Georgia and Alabama wouldn't play again. So that that one would make sense if Georgia was 4. Yeah.
The score of these games, they kind of matter too. I mean, I'm banking on that this game probably goes down to the wire. Maybe it's like 31-27 or something like that. Give me Michigan at the 1, Alabama at the 2, Florida State 3, Georgia 4.
So you're saying Ohio State in this scenario would get left out?
I think
with a loss
guys,
to Michigan in the last
guys,
week.
I
just
said
want
it
to make sure we're
before.
on the same page.
I think Michigan steamrolls Ohio State.
I don't know if that's as hot of a take as you
Steamroll.
saying both SEC teams are getting in now after that's I mean, I could see it. That's the problem is I could see it.
I know what I
Merch,
want.
were you
What do
agreeing
I
with
what
that?
do I want? What do I want? I'd probably take Oregon in it because I think Oregon's a top 4 team in college football. But I know what I'm going to get. So
Yeah, no, I'm sticking to my guns too. My college football playoff prediction is the only graphics I would say that's pretty much still alive. I think you can get easily
2 out.
Georgia and Bama in there, and then I'm taking Oregon. And even if Florida State wins it, this is not going to go over well with people. But even if Florida State wins out, I'm not putting them in over 12-1 conference champion Oregon.
all right. Okay, this guy's
Yeah, you
smoking
can't
crack.
do that, though.
They
I'm
won
not.
every game. What do you
Can't do
what
that.
do you
though.
ACC
now
is
you're just
Can't do
come
that.
on.
The ACC is weak. If we're putting the 4 best teams in with SEC bias,
they
they're
ain't
going to
Central
keep them
Florida.
out.
Parks, they would win. They would have a win over LSU and a win at Florida if they ran the table. And
LSU
they just ran
week
through.
1 win.
They won at
And
Clemson.
And at Clemson.
You're going to give me Florida as your second best win and tell me that they deserve
No,
to
you
get
just
in?
said they ran through the ACC and they scheduled 2 SEC in their non-conference. Like you can't keep them out if they run the table.
You can keep them out because it's Alabama and Georgia.
You would not. Some people would probably get into your house and kill you if you were on the committee.
Good.
They would
Bring
try
it
to
in
find
here.
you.
Because I have Oregon in the college football playoff. They should make it.
That's
and
fine.
they're conference champion. I think Michigan gets in. I think Ohio State does get left out. I think this is the year that no matter what happens in the game, and they're going to win the Big Ten, that other one will get left out. And if it's Michigan, I think that even the decisions that have come down after the allegations and whatever you want to call it, it'll still come into play when the committee makes their decision, if that were to happen. So I think there's some crazy possibilities.
What if Texas runs the table? What's your guys' reasoning on to keep them out?
Well, I haven't given mine yet.
You have Texas
go
in
ahead.
it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I have
Wow,
Texas
so
and
do I.
Oregon in it. Texas and Oregon.
That's
Good
so
man.
that would
Never
give
mind,
you
not a
Fun.
wow.
That's-
Good point.
That's fun. I like it.
I would
but
love it.
don't
I
see
would
it
love
happening.
that,
It's
Jordan.
fun.
guys.
I'm here for that, Jordan.
If I'm sitting here right now looking at the future and we predict the future, we have our little crystal ball and right, you get it. Predict future. All this happens, right? Oregon, now what's the knock on them? The strength of schedule. But we've also said how good the Pac-12 has been this year. Now, even with Wazoo kind of falling off, Pac-12 is still good. I still think UCLA is a good team, even though they lost in Arizona State and they've lost 2 straight. I think they're a good football team. I don't all of a sudden think that the SEC is super good because Alabama kind of figured it out against. I mean,
We can go back.
If we're being honest with ourselves, like they're not. They're getting
SEC.
better, but that doesn't mean they're that much better than this Oregon team or this Texas team that went in there and beat them, right? Like I think that Oregon team is legit on both sides of the football. You cannot tell me the same for Alabama, right? If you're doing eye test and you're putting Oregon next to Alabama, let's say it's Alabama against Texas because they played. You kind of saw them play. Granted, earlier in the year, right? And you have Oregon, probably best win right now. Oh, who is Oregon's best win?
Probably Utah, right?
That's the problem.
At
Utah or
Utah?
USC.
Yeah, I mean, they
Like,
housed Utah.
Either way, you give the best team. I think you have a better quarterback, a better offensive line, better playmakers on the edge. Defensively, they're pretty equal. I mean, that Oregon defense is good, and that Alabama defense we know is very good. But I just think eye test and you go win the Pac-12 and you do exactly what you're supposed to do. I get it. Now, an SEC champ to keep out would be psychotic in some ways. People would look at that and be like, oh, what's the SEC? It's big, bad. Is it? Because we were just talking 2 weeks ago how the conference is not where it's usually at. And I don't think it's that far above what the Pac-12 is. Texas, you get in because you beat the SEC champ in their home field. I don't care when it was. You have your quarterback back. And let's say you're rolling because I think that defense is solid. And I think they have one of the better offenses in the country too. So that's what I see. And it probably won't happen that way, if I'm being quite honest with you. But it's not ideal.
There's no way they're
fun. I want to believe it.
unless somehow I would say maybe Georgia loses this weekend and then they beat Alabama. I mean, I just don't see.
I don't know. I think Georgia Tech gets them.
Yeah, to get bowl eligible. It's
Haynes
still alive,
King,
by the way.
man.
Big week
Haynes
for the Ramblin' Wreck.
You're not.
When you
keeping.
look at this though, like, isn't this kind of weird that this is the one year where we've really had this crazy of a scenario? And like, it feels like right before the 12-team playoff shows up.
Yep.
We didn't have it last year or the year before or the year before. But of course, right when they change all the freaking rules and they bring in 12, it gets chaotic. So everybody's like, yeah, see, we were right. We were right. And then next year, there's going to be like 3 teams who deserve it.
Yeah, but it is cool though. Like,
JP,
think of all these teams being in. That's
JP,
cool.
Yes. How awesome is this going to be next year? Because also right now, like
It's
you're
not going to
debating
happen next year.
You're debating 7 teams right now or whatever. You're throwing out a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan right now. Next, so if you include them, you're having 8 teams right now that you should have going to be the champion. Like those, instead of us talking about these games, we can actually watch these games on a TV and bet on them.
You know who are also throwing
these teams are not going to be as well rounded and as good next year.
You know who are also
do you know that? Did you know this was going to happen this year?
If you brought the data points in front of me and you looked at the last 5-6 years or whatever the playoff started in 2014, data points would show there's not this many teams usually. This is like 1 of 2 years. Maybe.
Let me tell you guys. You know who else is getting in the playoff? Louisville, Missouri, Tulane, Oregon State. And I like Oregon State.
Okay, Oregon State's good though.
But come on.
Yeah, chill.
All 4 of those teams are good.
Okay, fine, Shaver. There's your one game
playoff. It's like when you get in the conversation as a playoff team, that like stamps for something. Like you're never like Iowa State, for instance, say they are atop of the Big 12 in 3 years. Can you really say that Iowa State is a playoff team? Like in that same conversation, it shouldn't be a thing. We don't recruit the same way. We're not on the same pay level as these teams. It should never be an even level playing field like this.
Get yourself there. That's like
Iowa State.
Like once you get there, then you can
Iowa
say
State's
you
in a group of 5 conference.
I don't want to hear it out of you.
Iowa State's in the newest group of 5 conference.
I don't know why he's complaining so much. All you need to do is go outside and start drilling until you find oil and you have oil money, and then you can give all this money to the university.
Don't say Tulane either. Like it's not a team that beat USC in their game last year. I mean, Tulane, you never know. Those are the games that all of a sudden that happens and you have madness.
Shave's giving that look like he did when he was talking about Iowa State beating Ohio.
What's Georgia doing to USC last year? I mean, they scored 63 on TCU. Are they getting to 100?
Dude,
are they putting 100 on USC?
But they could.
That's an outlier.
They could if they wanted to.
And TCU was better than USC last year.
That's my point.
JP, something that just came to mind. You know what? I think Oregon actually gets more credit this week for beating Texas Tech on the road after they beat Kansas too. So that's another one. Point Oregon towards you and me.
Yeah, and
I feel like they get more credit.
They're grinding out games on the road. Sometimes you got to survive, so we can't then look back and be like, "Oh, well, they only beat them by whatever. Oh, that's their best win." Well, you told them to survive, and you told them to go win these football games, and they did, right? So there's a little give and take. What'd you say?
Tyler Shuck was also playing in that game.
That's a fact. It was also early, and they had Oregon just come off of a gritty one too, and Texas Tech came off a gritty one at home for the first time. I mean, again, you just got to survive sometimes, and we can't hold it against every team ever. We might have to write that down so we can get a graphic out there who we think in this scenario gets out there. I think it'd be interesting to put that out there and see who agrees with what, because I think we had pretty much
graphic. This whole clip will be out on YouTube.
Perfect. Hey, let's jump.
One last thing, JP. One last thing. Would it not be electric to watch Texas go to Oregon and play in a college football playoff game? Would that not be?
Is that how it's lined up?
You know what you could do.
Well,
with that,
I have
Reese?
no idea. I'm just saying. I'm
Reese,
making these up as you go. I'm just saying, like, how fun would that be to watch?
You know what you could do with that? You could take the top 6, or you could take the top 8, not the top fucking 12.
I think 6 or 8 is a better number, Jacob. But I'm saying that's what they gave us. But you're still going to get these games next year if you do fucking 8 or 6.
If that were to happen, Reese, if that were to happen, I really hope the Texas fans that travel to Eugene, I hope that Oregon is really competitive. That way, Texas fans can experience their atmosphere. Fuck you, Jake. That was the worst comment ever. They want to kick their ass. That's great football. I'm excited for it. You should be excited for it, especially after this. I mean,
you guys want to know what the matchups would be?
Yes.
Yeah, I just
might as well give it to us.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 Georgia, 2 Ohio State, 3 Florida State, 4 Michigan. Wait, this is no way this is right.
I got you, Jordan. It's right here. I got one for week 12. Here's the 4. Georgia is the 1, Michigan's the 2, Texas
Yeah, why
is
does
the
this
3,
whole rambunctious?
Florida State is the 4. Those are the 4 teams that get the bye. For your 8 versus 9, we have Alabama hosting Louisville. Race to see if Alabama can get to 70 points. Awesome.
Okay.
For another game,
You
we
think?
have
Whoa! They're not
Come
putting
on.
up 70 on Louisville. I'm sorry.
sorry,
They
they're
didn't put
getting-
up 70 on anybody.
Sorry, it's 45-0. Thanks. Talk to you later. The next game, you have Ohio State hosting Tulane, which I don't love Ohio State, but they're still probably winning by 14, 20 points. That line comes out at least like 12, 14. I don't even know.
Probably.
You kind of need. Washington hosts Missouri. That is one team
Fun
that
game.
I think Missouri could go in
Fun
there.
game.
You're falling into the SEC homerism, Reese, when we let 5
No,
SEC teams in.
I'm just saying a fun game to watch. I don't give a shit about homers. I'm saying
All right.
that game is on right now. You don't want to watch that for a New Year's Six bowl.
It's a good one. And then 6 and 11 is the Civil War again. They would be playing back to back. Oregon State. So
I hate the back-to-back thing, by the way. Hate it, but it would matter because Oregon State would need to win
Fun
to stay in
game.
it.
yeah, Oregon State wouldn't technically even be in this if Oregon
They would
beat-
have to win.
so
Yeah,
somebody
they have to win next
you'd
week.
probably think like Oklahoma would probably maybe Oklahoma would be in that spot. Just trying to think of like who would, because Oklahoma State would get to the title game and I don't know, have one loss. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
the team I think. It's the team I thought of, but yeah, that would be first round if it
Interesting.
starts today. Also, I don't need these every week. I'm adding you on 3. I don't need it every single
They've been
week.
doing it since week 3. What are we talking
Yeah,
about? Like
that's-
it's not
that's
like
what
they
I'm-
don't put it out every week. Hey, just let them be them, Schaefer, and we'll be us. They be them, we'll be us, right? They hate us
But
because
they
they hate
can't.
us.
What we
Here's-
can
here's-
control.
Here's my point. Here's my point I just made. So I talked about like Oregon State wouldn't be the 11. So like when they do these projections, literally a year from now, they're gonna have to decide like, okay, who's winning between Oregon and Oregon State, because somebody who loses that football game probably won't get into the 12 team. Does that make sense? So they
Yes,
can't
it
just
makes
go off
sense.
like the actual rankings every single week. They have to make projections on like who is probably going to run the table and win these football games the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year.
There's gonna be a lot of average sports writers out there making a lot of content out of it.
Oh,
That's all
dude.
I gotta say. It's gonna be clickbait as shit. Somebody's gonna have like somebody ranked outside the top 25. Like, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
they'll get in, even with 2
They'll
losses.
run the
I
table
think
and
they'll
get
to
in.
12.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah. Hey, let's jump into our previews though, because we have 4 games that we really want to touch on. Big games for the weekend. We're gonna start on the West Coast. We're gonna go Utah at Arizona. Arizona a 1-point favorite in this situation. It's going to be absolutely electric in Tucson. How about another big game for the Arizona Wildcats, who didn't have that high expectations coming in, but Jed Fish has made this program relevant. They're starting to win games more and more. They didn't cover last week, disappointed them in Boulder, but they did win the game. They'll come back home in a real test in a Utah team that's playing really well. Let's jump into this breakdown. Reese, you are up.
Nope.
It's me, but
sorry.
Reese, you can. Yeah, I'll have Reese chime in. Hopefully,
I
you'll
was
have a pick
looking at
for
the
me.
under the radar thing that my whole eye level was
Yeah,
up
we're
on
only
the old
human.
deal.
We're only human. It's okay.
It's all right. Just a back step into this. Let's start in the Pac-12. It's an exciting game. It's cool that Arizona's back in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we had a 20-minute long debate today in the group chat of whether or not this would be an upset in this case. I think it would. I think it's a higher ranked team beating a lower ranked team. I mean, what are we talking about? Anyway, I won't go off on that tangent. Let's look into the game. The keys to the game. Let's start with Utah. Utah is a team that if they lose the turnover battle, they lose the game. It's a team that's found themselves in uncommon ground. They are 2-2 in their last 4 games, and the last 2 or 3 years for this team where they've dominated the Pac-12 and won the conference, they really haven't had stretches like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond after slipping up the last couple of weeks in spots where they honestly probably should have won the game. I thought they competed last week at Washington as we thought they would. It was kind of split 2-2 decision on the pod, but they just made too many mistakes, and I think that was just a product of their young quarterback. And another key for them is to limit big plays. Every time they've lost this year, they've allowed a touchdown or 20 more yards, and including the Oregon game, they just kind of let Oregon do whatever they want on the offensive side of the ball. So their defense isn't terrible, but it needs to step up and get stops in big situations because Arizona's got a lot of weapons coming at you where they can blow this thing open too. So it's an interesting spot, but if Utah is going to be Utah, it's a team that's going to scratch, fight, claw their way deep into a game, and it's a coach that's going to have his boys ready to go, whether they're 7-3 or 3-7. So it'll be interesting for them in this spot. And then flipping over to Arizona, like I said, it's fun to have them back in the picture, man. Noah Fafita is an absolute stud. He's come in since I think it was like week 4 or 5, and he's just taken over this team and taking them to the promised land, man. He is having a hell of a year. 1,700 yards through the air, over 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns, and only 4 picks. And then on the outside, Tetaria McMillan has been an absolute monster. He's really hitting his stride. He was 9 receptions for 107 yards last week in their comeback win over Colorado, where they won in the last seconds. Love it, Reese. That's for you, buddy. And then sophomore Jonah Coleman. What an absolute bowling ball he was last week, running for 170 yards, averaging 16.9 yards per carry. He could have a big week here. But Utah's defense is good. So it'll be interesting to see how this Arizona team, who's young, who doesn't have a lot of experience in the spotlight when it comes to being a ranked team. We'll see how Arizona Stadium is, the first time being back in the national spotlight. So there's a lot of unknowns in this game. But for Arizona, they're two keys, or they have to get pressure to Barnes on the defensive side of the ball. When he's under pressure, that's when he makes his mistakes. Like I said, if Utah loses the turnover battle, they usually lose the game. So that's the biggest key for Arizona to win this one. And then they also have to handle the run game, and that includes Barnes. He was their leading rusher last week against Washington, so it's a guy that will scramble. So if they do those two things, I think Arizona can find success. Will they? I don't know. I feel like it all comes down to Utah's offense and kind of what they look like. I think people forgot what Utah's offense was at the beginning of this year before Barnes stepped in there. I mean, they were the definition of abysmal. They couldn't move the ball. So if they can get to him and kind of take his game away, I think they can expose this Utah offense for what they were. And Jaquaden Jackson, if he doesn't get going, then they can really do that. So I don't think they do get it done when it comes down to simply this, just the experience thing. I don't think they're ready for a spot with a team who has experienced guys who have played in massive games at the end of the year. We're in mid-November now, so you got to look at Utah a little bit of a different way. So I like Utah plus the 1.5 on the road here. JP.
I 100% see what you're saying right here. This is a fun. I don't like that it's at 1:30. I was really hoping this was kicking off at like 8:30, right? Like 1:30 doesn't seem right for this kind of game between these two programs. But what if we were talking about a team in Arizona that Fafita had started for at Mississippi State early in the year? How different are you looking at this team, right? I think like people may have forgot about that game, but looking back at it, like what if they got hot then and then they've gone on this, little run that they have? Super exciting stuff. I'm pumped to watch this one. This will definitely be a main screen TV one for me. Jake, you're up. Who do you have in this one? Any other thoughts on it?
Utah can't run the ball very well, and that's when they need to be at their best is when Jackson gets the ball. He had like 29 yards at Washington last week, which allowed Barnes to throw a couple of picks. And on the other side, Arizona's been defending the run really well. Schlee for UCLA and Shadur at Colorado were the top 2 leading rushers, and that's not a good thing because they both rushed for like 35 yards on this Arizona defense. And you look back 3 weeks ago, Damian Martinez was only able to get 85 yards, which for him is like he basically might have as well had a 35-yard game. So I think that being said, at home, I think Arizona defends the run really well. And they found ways to win without Jacob Cowing having a ton of yards. McMillan, like you said, Parks has had a huge year. And if Cowing gets to 80 to 100 yards, they can really spread this offense out and take advantage of Utah. So give me the home team and the little points.
Reese, to you.
I mean, if you would have asked me at the beginning of this game or beginning of the year, if I would have been paying attention to this game, I probably would have said no because I really didn't expect Arizona to do a whole lot.
That's a fair point.
I think this was going to be a really interesting game. I didn't know Arizona was going to be this. I didn't think Utah was going to kind of have that downslide. So I mean, having the 3 losses, but I have had luck going with them this year, and Whittingham's still a hell of a coach. So I got to stick with the team that's been fine with me on this board, and I got to take the Utes.
I'll go Arizona here. And I have most of the feel here just because of being at home, right? I think going to Seattle and now we got to go down Tucson. It's going to be tough on Utah. And how much more do you got left in you, right? I think this team has had a long year of just, struggles at the start. thinking you're going to get Rising back, and then you lose a couple games, you get blown out at home, and then you go on the road and blow somebody out, and then you go up to Washington and get beat in a close one where you didn't play your best, and they're just kind of like, well, shit, what else can we do kind of thing. Just another spot. I think last week maybe been a little bit of a trap for Arizona, knowing this was coming up, but now you're coming back home. You had your scare last week versus a team that's not as good as you. Utah's up to the challenge. Arizona will have to be as well, but I'll take Arizona on the graphic for this one. So that'll be a ton of fun. Again, wish it was 8:30, 9 o'clock. We can't do this 1:30 stuff. Like at a minimum, give me 2:30, right? We got to be in the windows here. But that's what happens when you're on the Pac-12 network. So let's jump to the SEC. How about Georgia coming off a big win versus Tennessee? Plus 10.5 are the Vols at home. Let's talk a little bit about this one here. Reese, what are you thinking?
I got the Dawgs shirt on. Just kind of put that on because I'm going to be talking about this game. But we know last week Georgia's coming off a resounding win against Ole Miss, 52-17. And if you look at that game, what did they do right? Couple things. They kept Dart to 10 of 17 for only 112 yards, 1 interception. And Judkins only carried the ball 22 times, only for 75 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but they were within 5 yards of him coming out. And defensively, they kept Ole Miss 6 of 15 on third downs, and they only turned it over 1 time, Ole Miss did. But looking at the score, you would think they forced 4 or 5 turnovers. That's just how efficient they were. Georgia was on offense, and then on defense, they were just sound all over the place. If they can take away the run from Tennessee and make Joe Milton be the guy to beat you, I really think Georgia can win this game handily, and I'm not too worried about it. Milton has 5 interceptions, as well as the team has 6 fumbles, so they have 11 turnovers for the year. If Georgia can go in there and find a way to take away that run right away and make Milton scramble, not go to his first look, not go to Squirrel White and whoever he's got out there, I think the Georgia defense will be just fine. And then if you're looking at Tennessee, what do they have to do to win? I just think defensively they have to be sound at all levels. They got to be physical up front, and I think a thing that will keep them in this game and have them a shot is if they can stay in it early. I think they got to get stops. They can't give up touchdowns early. Maybe you can give up a field goal, but they can't give up touchdowns early. And they got to get some turnovers. Let your crowd be a part of this game. They have to let Neyland Stadium affect this game. And we all remember last year that Bama win was huge, but that's a completely different Tennessee team. They had a whole different scheme offensively. So they got to let that crowd be a part of it. And then defensively, Tennessee's they're not the best, not the worst. They've also forced 4 fumbles and 10 interceptions as well. So what can they do to pressure Beck, who everybody's kind of waiting to see if he's going to have a bad game? He really hasn't yet. He's only had 8 turnovers on the year. So if they can find a way to pressure him early and make him just get rid of the ball and not be able to get to his guys who are going to be open, I think they have a shot at keeping him in this. Offensively, I just don't know if they're going to have enough to keep it going. So I think it's going to be a lot on Tennessee's defense to keep the crowd in the game and get some turnovers and get some stops early. If they're giving up touchdowns right away, if they're giving up 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, I don't see they're going to have enough to stick around with this game. When it comes to the spread, it's at 10. I think it is what it is because of the differences in these teams, and I'm not going to go against Kirby Smart in this team. So give me Georgia to win and Georgia to cover. Shaver, what you got?
Thanks for tossing it to me. When I look at Tennessee, I really don't know what I'm going to get. I do know that if this was in Athens, like this would be a 40-point game because Tennessee has just been bad on the road this year. But that's really where they've played their legitimate teams. They had to travel to Tuscaloosa. They even got a scare in Lexington. Last week, they got dominated in Columbia. And then they lost early in the year in Gainesville. So they haven't really seen anybody at home. Texas A&M was the closest thing and kind of gave them a fight. But Texas A&M's offense also isn't very good. Cody Schrader last week had 200 yards on this defense out of Tennessee. And they're like top 20 rush defense, top 40 total defense. Maybe that plays a factor at home. Does Brock Bowers play? I haven't really heard anything, but there was murmurs about it last week. The whole thing for me is I see this coming out like Neyland will be on fire. This will be close in the first half. And just like last week when Georgia made the second half adjustments against Ole Miss, I see the same thing happening here. And I think Georgia can cover the number. They don't really have to worry about anything next week with Georgia Tech. This is kind of your last big test before you go into that SEC championship. Take care of business. And I think they'll cover the number. I mean, Georgia really hasn't let me down in these big spreads this year so far. But 10.5 that's a tricky number. That is a tricky number, especially maybe in a group that Kirby Smart might pull his starters out a little earlier than expected because of what's coming up next. But I'm going to bank on it. Give me Georgia and the 10.5.
Don't worry, he's going to pull them when they're up 37.
Yeah, I think Jake kind of hit the nail on the head. I think it comes down to a very simple thing on the Tennessee side of things, and that is, can you limit Kendall Milton? Can you limit DeJon Edwards on the ground? Because you didn't do that last week. And don't get me wrong, Cody Schrader is a very good back, one of the best in the SEC. It's such a cool story to follow. If you haven't looked into that, do that. But can they limit those guys? If they can't, which you would think Tennessee, with how good their front four is, that they could, they just didn't last week. If they can't do that, they're not going to be competitive in this game. Georgia will control the clock. Not to mention Carson Beck can run a little bit. I mean, this guy, he's at Georgia for a reason, and Tennessee's got their hands full, especially coming after an absolute ass whooping they received last week. But I have no problem saying Volunteer Stadium will be ready to go. Neyland will be ready to go. But you are asking for a different animal with a lesser team in Tennessee. So give me the Dogs.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? I took Tennessee last week all alone. Paid the price. Won't do it again. Won't do it again. I'll take Georgia as well. That's all the way across the board. Yeah, I flew solo a couple times last week, and I thought they'd pay off. None of them did. But that's rough for me on the ATS board because I was on pace with everybody. Now a little bit behind. So we'll have to figure that one out. Let's go to the Big 12 now. How about a little Sunflower State showdown between Kansas State and the Kansas Jayhawks? Shaver, you're the Big 12 homer. What do you got for us?
Well, hopefully Jason Bean plays because they're going to need him in order to snap the losing streak. Kansas is on a 14-game losing skid in this rivalry. I don't know if you can even consider it a rivalry at this point. If you've lost 14 in a row, the only thing considering it a rivalry would be that they just are a couple of hours away from each other. But I think Bean is going to play. Leipold's pretty optimistic, and he said that in his press conference. He had some sort of head injury in that Tech game, which ultimately cost him. But if not, they're going to look to go to Cole Bernard, who's the freshman walk-on quarterback. And I would be terrified if I were a Kansas fan going against this Kansas State defense with him under center. Just it's too new, too fresh. He just doesn't have the skill. He's a walk-on for a reason. That's just a bad spot. But if they had to do it, Kansas State has interestingly faced 4 backup quarterbacks this year. So not anything that Kansas State hasn't seen and wouldn't be prepared for. Will Howard's just been rock solid ever since that Avery Johnson game against Texas Tech. I'm almost leaning like it was an injury at this point on why he didn't play for those couple of weeks, but because he's been rock solid again ever since. And I think he's going to have a successful day against Kansas in that defense. Well, the biggest interesting factor when I look at this game is like the running back duos for each team. Which team has a better day on the ground? I think that will implicate who's going to win this football game. You have DJ Giddens and Trayshawn Ward out of Kansas State. You got Devin Neal, the speed back, and Daniel Highshaw, the power back for Kansas. I think Neal and Highshaw are going to have a bigger day, depending on what Bean's status is. But I don't know. We'll see. Kansas is one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. So it's a good opportunity for Giddens to have another 100-yard game like he did last week. Knowing what I know at this point, this is probably the toughest line we've been given so far. I'm going to take the Wildcats. I think they've been playing better football as of recent, the last couple of weeks. The unknown status of Bean, and I think Giddens and Ward could both combine for like 200 yards on this Kansas defense. So that's who I'm going to take.
As soon as I get myself off mute here. Reese, what do you think on that one?
Well, my pick's going to be coming later. Schaefer said a stat that was music to my ears, but I got a pick coming for this one later.
All right. Never mind. Parks, how about you?
Yeah, what a weird spot for Kansas last week to lose. Did somebody call it? I can't remember. It might have been like an extremely handsome guy on this podcast. I just can't remember. But what a weird spot for them.
I wasn't on the pod last week, Cam.
Oh, yeah. I know you got cooked, though. I'm surprised you haven't brought But anyway, It's true. The Kansas anyway lost last week to Texas Tech. For all of you living under a rock, and Texas Tech's a good team, man. They had weapons on the outside. It was a team that we were all 4 high on in the preseason. So don't think that now this Kansas team is awful, as Jake might tell you. But they're coming in against a Kansas State team that is a little bit of a different animal late in the year. I mean, these guys have experience. It's the defending Big 12 champion. I like him in this spot. I don't think what's it called? David Booth can
David
bring
Booth
enough hype
Memorial Stadium.
to flip this rivalry around. I just don't see it. So give me the Wildcats on the road. I'm gonna believe in Will Howard until he proves me different.
Yeah, clean sweep on the board again there. I'll take Kansas State as well. I don't know. It's mostly the quarterback thing as well, and you're kind of going to a point where one team's full steam ahead in Kansas State playing well, and the other one's coming off a weird loss and dealing with an injury. It's just tough to go with the Jayhawks in this situation. I don't know if I'd do it on a normal year. I'm definitely not doing it in this situation. Somebody's going to prove us wrong, as we've swept the board twice now, I think, on our picks. So somebody's going to beat us at some point.
Have we?
But let's head back to the pack. What'd you say, Reese?
Have we
Have we what?
swept the board? Have we?
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know. I guess not. I was just
Anyway,
massive assumption. That's my bad. Let's go back to the Pac-12 into the state of Oregon, where Washington heads to Corvallis into Reser Stadium in probably is it wrong to say? Is it tough to say the last massive game at Reser Stadium for at least like the next couple years? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with that school in Oregon State, but man, I mean, this is about as big as it gets. I'll also add into that, this is Washington's biggest game to date. For a reason that it's now late in the year, a loss in
biggest
the middle
game
of the year
or toughest game? I would argue that
I'm
it's
going
probably
with biggest.
I
there
would
was a
argue.
bigger one at the beginning of the year.
Nope, false.
All right.
Yeah, I'll get into that because if we're talking about Oregon, I assume is the game we're speaking of.
Yep.
The two are speaking of. Yep. If you lose that Oregon game and you get hot and you start winning the rest of these games, who says they're not looking at Washington like they are Oregon right now, right? If you lose later in the year, it is a lot tougher for that committee to look at a game and just ignore it, right? That's
Agreed.
the issue we always have every year. The later you lose, the harder it happens for you. That's outside the conference title game. We're not talking conference title game. We're talking weeks 10, 11, 12, right? That hangs on with a team a lot longer. Also with that, if you lose to Oregon and you get to the Pac-12 title, it's still in front of you, right? If you lose to Oregon State right here, you now put yourself in a spot where you have to win the Apple Cup next week, and then you have to win that Pac-12 title to get into the playoff. Theoretically, you could not lose a game in the regular season, go 12-0, lose to Oregon, sit yourself at 12-1, and have a chance at the playoff. Theoretically, not saying that's going to happen, not saying the committee is going to look at it the same way, but it is 100% a fact that this is the biggest game because you can't have one loss going into that Pac-12 title with any thought a loss gets you in. Not that anybody goes into a game thinking like that. That's just where I'm at on the whole thing. Washington only giving up 23 points per game, it seems like, but it's a skewed number because you're looking back early in the year where Boise State didn't put up much, Arizona State as well. But Utah, Cal, and Stanford are offenses that have all found success against this team, all offenses that weren't very good for majority of the year. We've seen Cal have explosions. That's been on bad teams, though, right? So I think that's the issue with Washington that everybody's looking at is can you slow down Oregon State's offense, who is a top 25 scorer in offense in the country, right? DJU has been good. The rush game's been good. Martinez is fun to watch. He's over 1,000 yards already. How about a guy who doesn't turn the ball over anymore in DJU, right? Like, what does Washington do well? It's better against the run. It's not been great in the air, and DJU has been able to do that without turning it over. Can you make him uncomfortable because you haven't been good at it all year? When you look at the numbers here, I believe that Washington's given up, or Oregon State's given up less than a sack per game, and Washington's ranked outside of the top 110, 115 in sacks on the year. It's been tough for them to get pressure, and if you can't get pressure on them and you can't stop the run, it's going to make it really tough to win because you know it's going to be an electric atmosphere. The line suggests that already. But what's good about Washington, right? Well, what's good about them is they can score literally on anybody. They didn't have a problem with Oregon's defense. They shouldn't have a problem with Oregon State's defense. Now, Oregon State can get to the quarterback, but who doesn't get sacked? Who doesn't go down and have negative plays? Who doesn't turn the ball over? Michael Penix, probably one of your Heisman frontrunners. He'll be in New York here in a couple weeks. So they have that going for him. Oregon State's defense only giving up 20.5 per game. Washington putting up 41. Hey, battle's the best right here. I think the best unit on the field is going to be Washington's offense. The second best unit on the field, you could make an argument, is Washington or Oregon State's defense, or between their offense. They're well balanced. I'd go with either one on that. But the worst unit on the field is the defense. So if you're Washington, how do you get yourself to a spot where you can just hang on a little bit, create enough stops, create enough turnovers, create enough opportunities in plus territory where you can take advantage as an offense and really pull away or put yourself in a spot to succeed where you don't have to really go tooth and nail and battle head to head through 100 yards every single time you have the football, or a 75-yard drive isn't the goal every single time. So it's going to be tough, and people see it. Vegas saw it. Bettors have seen it. Everybody's kind of looking at this game like, how does Washington get out of this one now? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, but I'd love to find out, which is why we're going to watch this one Saturday night. I have Washington winning the Pac-12, but I like this Oregon State team early in the year. It is hard for me to pick this one, and I feel like I might be alone here, but just give me Washington. I'm just going to ride the prediction early in the year. Let's just ride with it. I got them to win the Pac-12. That'd be a really good prediction for me to hit on the year, and I don't feel like I'm really swinging that far for the fences if I have Penix on my team. So, Jake, you were pretty pissed off about that one, or a big reaction. I just want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I'd have to wait to see what these guys' thoughts are, because I kind of thought I was on my own, but I guess I will take your hand, and we'll ride this train together.
Whoa, relax.
You guys thought we were going to be the only ones taking the favored team?
They're not. Washington's not favored. They're dogs. Pun intended.
They're not favored.
Saw that. Yeah,
why am I looking at what we got on the thing here is different than okay.
I'm taking the quarterback
Oregon State
in this spot.
-2.5.
This is a team you could argue that hasn't been playing its best football as of recent, but I mean, they went on the road before that Oregon game. They beat Arizona. At the time, I don't think people were impressed with what Arizona was presenting. They edged one out at Oregon at home. The Arizona State game is an outlier to me. I think Stanford's playing better football right now, so I'm not as concerned about them going on the road and giving up a few points to Stanford. They went out and they can prove they can get into a shootout with USC. And I thought last week, I mean, it's just a tough team in Utah. Like, they took care of business at home. I think they're going to get it done again this week. If you're Washington, your priority is to slow down Martinez like you did with Jackson last week at home. And I think you force DJ to beat you, honestly, with his arm. And is he good enough to do it? Probably. But I'm taking the better quarterback in this spot. And I think this team just finds a way to win. And I think they're going to do it again. So give me Washington.
Go ahead there, Parks.
Yeah, what a weird spot for Oregon State. You wonder if it's not, you can't really call it a look over spot, because they do have, like we said, the last Civil War coming up here next week, but you have two really, really tough games to end the year, a season that's been great and had its downside like Oregon State always does, where they lose to Arizona in week 10 or week 9 or whatever that was. I don't know if I've seen enough consistency from Oregon State's offense to believe that they can, even against a bad Washington defense, put up enough points to compete with Washington's offense. So give me Michael Penix in his 11th year of college to go in. He doesn't give a shit about Research Stadium. Give me the number 5 Dogs to win outright.
Reese, you have to say this.
Screw it. I'll do it. I was going to do it regardless anyway. Give me the Beavers.
I just need to make sure.
Give me I'll take DJU.
I don't know if you sounded too confident there. It sounded like you did that just for us, which is a team guy. That's a team guy move.
Well, when I've gone against the grain, I've usually been somewhat successful on the board. So hey,
nice. I'm looking for somewhat successful.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably worse news that Reese took against us. I mean, that kid's smoking the board.
Yeah, he is. He's red hot. It's bad. There's not many opportunities to catch him. But Oregon State, you control your own destiny, man. You win this week, you're favored, and at home, and you win next week, Pac-12 title. No, you get a chance at it. You'll get one of these two teams again. It'll be super exciting. We're not. I just want people to know by picking Washington, we're not downplaying Oregon State because they are a top 25 scoring offense. They are really talented. They are at home in a massive spot. It's just I feel more confident taking a team I have seen, not have that down game they won. Like when they go down and played poorly against an Arizona State or other teams, they end up winning the game. So I'm just going to go with Penix. But that's it for our weekly previews. We'll have a fifth game on the graphic. I don't know if we've decided on that. If you guys are okay with that one,
I think we said Louisville, Miami, right?
Yeah, we can do Louisville, Miami. We could do one of these group of 5 games. We can do whatever we want with that fifth slot. Open to anything, but anything else to add on previews for the week? This does feel like a very Pac-12 spot for it to screw itself out of a playoff spot, by the way.
Oh, 100%. They're the kings of that. This is the week right here, too.
100%. This will set up the spot where both teams have one loss in the Pac-12 title, and one loss keeps you out as a Pac-12 team just based on, the non-SEC bias that's really biased or the bias against the Pac-12. So numbers don't spike when Pac-12 teams play in the playoff, as sad as that is with how talented the conference is this year. Let's jump to under the radar games of the week. I think everybody is ready to give theirs. Let's start with Reese, though. What's your under the radar game of the week, man?
I just stuck in the city of Los Angeles, UCLA with USC, spreads at 7. I just picked it because we mentioned it before. It's kind of interesting. Didn't really see it coming with Kelly being on the hot seat. Don't think this is a game where it would make him stick around or keep around or whatever. But it's still Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. What are they going to do? How can they end the year with this program on a high note? That UCLA team was very up at the beginning of the year. Now they're kind of trending downwards. They still have a very solid defense. So it's going to be what can they do to slow down Caleb Williams and make him uncomfortable and keep himself in a ball game, because the spread is what it is. Like UCLA could still go win this ball game. It's not crazy to think they could.
Under
100%. I'm with you.
Under under in that game, 65.5. They have
UCLA's defense
with all of what's going on this week with the Chip Kelly rumors. They're still in shambles at the quarterback position with injuries and all of that. And I think UCLA's defense is good enough to put USC at 35. I see USC maybe getting to 35, and then can UCLA really get to, 30 with
anybody
even
can
if
get
it is
anything on that defense.
They're pretty bad still.
I kind of liked what I saw last week. I kind of liked what I saw. I think it was a little bit of coaching.
Week. Not fooling me. Parks, how about you? What's your under the radar game of the week?
Yeah, I got to go down to Lubbock, to Texas Tech, coming off obviously a big win against Kansas on the road. And then you have UCF, who's coming off a massive win against Oklahoma State at home. 2 teams coming off ranked wins that are fighting for bowl eligibility. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of this one. I think UCF looks better right now. Both teams have been riddled with injuries as well, which is interesting to follow and see how they've gone out throughout the year with those injuries in play. UCF took it to Oklahoma State last week. I think they ride the wave, go into Lubbock, and get a win against a backup quarterback in Texas Tech.
I'm not sure
if
UCF is ready for that road trip. I don't.
It's different.
It's those newcomers, man. It's Morgantown and Lubbock.
It would go against me, by the way, because I picked all the newcomers to not get bowl eligible.
To not get it bowl eligible?
Yeah, he said none of them would.
They're on. Hey, I think I joined you with that. So we need this one. It's to me.
Schaefer, I'll go here and then we'll go to yours. No, I'll go and then we'll do.
Take the back seat, bud,
because that's going to be on the board. So,
okay.
I got Texas at Iowa State. Iowa State is 7.5-point dog. This one will be at night in Ames. I think if you're Texas, you have to respect the spot and you have to respect what's happening right now, right? With a team at Iowa State that's feeling confident, they come off a win in Provo. Now they come home and they know they really have a chance to still get in the Big 12 title, but they need this one bad, right? If you're Texas, you can't slip up again. And next week shouldn't be your worry. It should be this week now. So the spot has to be respected and mentioned every single time a big game or bigger team comes into Ames. It's mentioned to the Oklahoma State team that lost out at a national title opportunity due to that. So we just have to talk about that one. And it's gonna be a dandy. I could see this one being a lower scoring game with 2 solid defenses. But Texas, are you up to the challenge? Right? I don't think that's goes without saying that it's not a normal week or a normal game in that situation. So I know that is your team, Schaefer. We can plug your preview for the week, but check that out on YouTube. Schaefer will dive deep into that one. So how you feeling about it, Schaefer?
Well, I did a poor job in my preview, and I don't think I gave a score prediction in this one. So I'll throw it on here right now if you haven't looked at it yet. I just think Iowa State and their front five for the offensive line is just up for a tall task, and I am going to take the under, and I will take Texas to win. Give me 28-17. So probably Texas to cover then as well.
What's the over under? Is it 45?
47. This is from what
47.
I saw last.
That's probably around that. So you'd be right at that number with that prediction.
I think
It'll
be there. It'll be close.
I think under is a good spot too, because I think Beck knows he's going against a good defense. I think Ewers understands and respects that too. So, Schaefer, last one for you. This one will be on the graphic on the ATS board for the week. Your under the radar game is.
No, we should flip that. We should flip that before he gives it.
What?
We should flip that to the G5 game of the week. I think it'd be fun to have a G5 game in there.
On the graphic?
Yeah.
Okay, we certainly can, but we'll switch that. We'll switch that one. We'll talk about it in the
You
next
can
segment.
decide whatever you want, man. We run the show.
It's our show.
It's true.
It's our show, man. We run it.
My under the radar game of the week is Louisville traveling to Miami. I believe
Welcome to
have they
Miami.
clinched? They have to win this to get in, right?
Yes.
To the
Louisville is a
ACC
win
title.
away.
One loss, yeah.
They got one win away before they can get to the ACC title, and they have it. A tall task for them as they're traveling to Coral Gables. Although all 12 fans for Miami need to be their loudest they have ever been.
Red Rock.
Louisville is a team that I don't think is playing very good football right now. They didn't play very well at home last week against Virginia. Maybe that was a look ahead spot. But we've seen Louisville on the road in certain spots like Pitt. I think that one was more of a trap game. I think they're a little more prepared and not underestimating this Miami team. But with everything that's on the line, I feel like this is a Louisville spot to lose. Like this just kind of seems like this is a spot that they will choke. I don't think they're as good as what they say they are as well. I think their power ratings kind of say that, and that's why they're only basically a pick 'em in this spot against who's playing for Miami at quarterback. Like that's the biggest question, right? I think with Tyler Van Dyke and his struggles, the body language of the team, I just think at this point, you're at 6 wins. I think you got to go with former 4-star and Ja'Carry Brown. Like if you're crystal ball, with the injury from Williams, I think it's just time to close the chapter on old TVD and move on to somebody else in this spot where you really don't have anything to lose. So if I had to side with something, I might be siding with the Canes here. I might. Well, I might wait till we post the graphic though before I definitely say it.
If it makes the graphic, because our group of 5 game of the week, I believe we decided on the Mountain West one, correct?
Yes.
Is that what I'm seeing? The W for the document? Perfect. How about UNLV and Air Force, right? That is going to be an absolutely amazing Mountain West game. Winner of this basically puts themselves into the Mountain West title game. The loser might as well just, I don't know where I was going with that, but they are going to be in tough sledding trying to get into the Mountain West title game. It's kind of
finish
a preview.
it. Go ahead and finish it.
Get ready for a fun bowl game later in the year.
Yeah,
guys.
100%. Yep.
Just ready for a bowl game.
Yeah, this is going to be a ton of fun. We featured the Mountain West a ton on our group of 5 games of the week. That's because I really enjoy watching that conference and all the schools out there. The other one was in the American. Just quick mention on it. Memphis and SMU will go at it. Another situation where there's 4 teams really in the race in the American for a chance to get into that conference title game. So tons of fun in the group of 5. Pay attention to those ones. As always, college football matters from top to bottom, all conferences in between. So been a ton of fun to watch those throughout the year. Into the betting segments we go, where I believe, I don't have that written down on my paper, but I got it in the doc, I believe. No, I don't.
You sure do.
Standings wise,
It should be me.
it is.
Standings
Wise, yes. Another win for Parks, huh? Catching a little fire. How you feeling right now?
Outright, I can't pick a ATS board pick for shit, but boy, I'm drilling the Dogs. I'm drilling the Dogs. That's all I gotta say. I'm out on the pick board. Don't follow those picks. Take the Dogs because I'm rolling right now.
Well, you
Am I
go
supposed to give
first
you a
if you're
pick?
leading.
Which is
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
you go
gonna
first.
say-
You're leading.
Sorry for the moment of silence.
Go
in
ahead,
there,
man.
But I'm gonna keep it rolling off the G5 game of the week. Give me the what am I want to say? Do I want to say Running Rebels or just Rebels? I'll just say give me the Running Rebels. What is it? Running Rebels?
Run Rebels is a lot cooler.
Or is it? I know, but do they just say that in basketball? I'm having a full
No,
brain
I mean, they
fart
use
if
Rebels
only say it in
mostly, but
basketball. Yeah. Okay. Well, give me the Rebels. Give me
Rebs.
UNLV on the road plus the 3.5 at Air Force. Air Force coming off a couple of bad losses, man. They got beat by Army handily. They only put up 3 points in that game. And they got beat last week by Hawaii, 27-13. What a crumble after we established that they were a wagon. Going to be the group of 5 team that played in the New Year's Six Bowl. Give me UNLV. This is a program that was in the absolute shitter a couple of years ago. They're rebuilding while nobody's watching except for me. So give me plus the 3.5. I think they went outright.
Schaefer, you're still second place right now. You're up now.
Can I toss it to Reese? I want to, because I
No,
want to
you
hear
can't.
Reese.
You can't
I want to
pass. You
know.
cannot
I
pass.
want to. I'm not passing. You can circle back.
No,
to
you
me,
have to
but-
go now. You have to go now. You're in second. You go second.
Yeah,
That
you left the
works.
document
Shave?
blank, so nobody knows this.
I'm
This is
Shave?
news to everybody.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
shocked. I'm gonna put
That's
on a
because
shock
you
face.
guys are getting a live pick because I hate underdogs so much.
Good. Don't
Uh,
pick Nebraska. It didn't work.
No, I'm gonna take. Oh God, I am going to take Louisiana Tech on the road at Jacksonville State. Give me the 8.5. I think Jacksonville.
God.
Dude,
This is what happens.
you
When
need to
this
go
is
get
what
some
happens.
breeze, close the
Go
door,
wash your
turn the
hands.
fan on.
Go wash your hands.
This is
That-
what
You
gotta
happens
be a
when you
thick puppy.
put a gun. You put a gun to my head and you force me to do something. And I'm just gonna pull the trigger and do it. So give me.
You're saying it like it's news, like it's not week 12 of us picking an underdog. La Tech?
He's a
Dude.
sick puppy.
Let me come back,
a sick
circle
puppy.
back to me, and I'll
Mark
have
Mark.
more logic for my reason. You guys move on. I really want to hear Reese's because I think I know.
Reese,
what it
you're
is.
up. Reese, you're up.
All right, we didn't talk about it before, but I'm going against the grain again here too. KU plus the 9.5 against K State. Schaefer mentioned that stat where K State's won 14 in a row or something like that. Remember when Oklahoma tried to roll into Lawrence this year and try to win that game, and they
That's it,
lost? So
man.
they had won 30 in a row. Leopold's gonna get the boys fired up. Give me KU.
All right.
He's got a good point. He's got
Come
points.
on,
He's
dude.
not-
You're gonna sit.
He's not wrong.
You're
I'm
gonna.
I'm not
think
gonna.
they're wrong. Come on.
I'm in last. I can't say anything. I'm in last.
I want to
Right.
change my pick. I want to change
No,
my pick.
I mean, somebody make a ruling.
Hey,
here.
it's
wrong
like you
with
had
this
all
kid?
day. You
I
knew
wanna
this
change my
pick was
pick.
coming.
I
and
missed
you
this
didn't
one.
do your pick.
Guys, you'll love this one.
Oh, God.
Will we though?
I think so.
Georgia State.
No, Utah State at home plus the 3.5 hosting Boise. Boise's got to be in shambles, right? Like Utah State's a solid team in the Mountain West. That's going under the radar. So
Jake,
I like
you're a
that one a
sick
lot
fuck.
better.
You know
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I know.
You can't be serious. Those
Yeah,
are
oh yeah,
equal.
100%. I'm 100%. I hate all of the other Power 5 underdogs this week. I just hate them all. So
Perfect.
we gotta keep a group of 5 highlighted in our show somehow.
I just
mean,
picked
we
one.
did have a
That's-
whole
that's my
segment
final
on
answer.
it.
That
Yeah.
part.
Final
That's
answer.
just it.
Hey, final answer. I'm sending it in now. That's it.
This is
I
getting
put it in.
ridiculous.
I mailed it, sealed it. That's my pick. Utah State plus 3.5.
Good job,
Great
Shave.
pick, Jake.
Thanks.
I'm gonna fade a team that's really struggling still in this moment. I think last week I would have loved to go against them. I'll go against them this week though, even though they're at home. How about Colorado plus 4.5 on Friday night at Wazoo? Man, I mean, sometimes they score and show up. Sometimes Wazoo doesn't show up anymore. Cam Ward and that whole, that high everybody was on 5 weeks in, us included, has kind of fallen off. I think Colorado was really itching to get one last week against Arizona. I don't think they're really, and I think they'll be pumped up and looking at this as a real chance to win a football game up in Pullman. So Friday night, give me Colorado in the 4.5. So to the best bet segment we go. I'll start with this one. Actually, Reese, you go. I got to mute so my
I'm
dog
saying-
doesn't spaz out when my brother walks in the door.
Calm down, Cowboy. All right, well, I'm gonna go with what's been hot for me. Give me Iowa unders. Iowa, Illinois this week under 30.5. It's been back-to-back winners for me. Why go away from it when it's hot?
Even with the official news of Cooper DeJean not playing, you still feel good?
I'm not worried about it, dude.
Actually, you
That
might actually
offense-
feel better. I take that
That
back
offense
immediately.
still
I take
offense still
30 and a
can't.
half.
It was 29.5 last
You
week.
should. That's like, dude. That's like you should call it Mount Everest because it's so high. Like
Yeah.
that is so high.
Final score is gonna be 7-6.
It was a dumb joke. That was a dumb joke.
He's got a point though.
I'll go last. I'll go last here.
So
You want me to
Cam,
go
Parks
or
to
what?
you. Parks to you.
Okay. I'm gonna ride the free Harbaugh train. I just think it's a program with so many eyes on them, and you saw the absolute breakdown from the coach last week. And Michigan came off a massive win at Penn State. I don't think this is going to be a hangover spot for them. I just watched Maryland play a full football game. They don't scare this Michigan team one bit. Give me Michigan minus the 19 traveling to Maryland. There's just too much firepower on offense for the Wolverines that they don't put up at least 40 here. And then Maryland's offense is weird, man. They're not as good as advertised. They like to throw the ball downfield. So if Michigan limits that, they'll cruise this one, and I won't sweat an ounce. Jake.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick in the Big 12, and I'm gonna take West Virginia at home minus the 6.5 versus Cincinnati. I think that this is a team in Cincinnati that finally got their win last week in Big 12 play, but guess what? It doesn't count because you played Houston, a team that's just as bad as you are. This Cincinnati team cannot stop the run. When they play legitimate physical Big 12 teams, RJ Harvey, even for UCF, had 160 yards against them. Ollie Gordon had, I think, over 200. Like, you're playing Donaldson and you're playing the other back at West Virginia. And I think both of those two can go for 250 plus. And I think West Virginia underratedly has one of the best offensive lines in the country, or in the Big 12 and possibly in the country. And I don't think Cincinnati's just going to be up for it with the season kind of dwindling down for them.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on mine. I haven't found one quite that I want to throw into this group. So I had this one originally. I think it's just going to be the smarter one to go with, but the weather doesn't look like it's playing into my hand. How about over 63.5, Washington, Oregon State, right? Two teams that can score. We've seen Washington give up a ton of points. We've seen Washington score on anybody. So over 63.5, hoping the rain isn't as nasty as they said it's going to be. If it is, I don't love that as much. But for this situation on a Wednesday, I'll do that. So that is my best bet for the week. Anything else that we want to touch on prior to closing up shop for the week and then going into the last week of the season next week?
Getting excited.
No,
Nothing.
a lot of silence
Hey,
out of this group
yeah,
tonight. A
hey,
lot of
perfect,
pauses.
perfect. Hey, going to be a great week of college football. I'm super pumped up for this one. Hopefully somebody can catch Reese on the ATS board. Hopefully someone can catch Parks and Dawgs Dog. We know we can't lose to him again in the conference title point game. We will talk about that next week and the week after. Hey, let's have a great weekend of college football. Love all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Follow us on all our socials and subscribe on YouTube. Take us away there, Schaefer.